Welcome back to part 2 of our glass marbles. We're going to be working on the blue marble. Next, I'm going to use my Conte pencils number 43 Prussian green and also Conte number 21, which is blue green. There's a slight difference in color. That was the Conte 21, and this is the Conte 43, which is a little greener. Now, as I color, I'm coloring around the highlight areas because we want to save those till last. So I just draw around them and add the color. Just placing even color like you would in a coloring book and carefully going around these little shapes. After I use the 43 Conte Prussian green, I'm going over that with the Conte 21 blue green, which just adds more blue to the mix and helps fill in the tooth of the paper. This is Carbothello 590 Viridian Matte, and I'm using it to outline the top edge of my marble to even that out when using a darker color to do that. And over that, I'm using a Pitt Pastel 159 Hooker's Green. After adding that green, I'm going to take my little blender and blend well. I'm adding more color with the Conte 43. I'm using my Derwent 370, which is pale spectrum blue, to color in the highlight areas with a very light blue. Now, after adding the light blue to all our little highlight areas, I'm going to take my Carbothello white pencil and outline the boxes. So my pencil's very sharp. I'm going to outline the boxes, and then we're going to shade these little highlight areas. Now the ones at the top are brighter because the light is stronger, so I'm coloring over the blue with the white. Now I always follow my reference photo as I paint. I'm adding a little more Conte 43 green at the top, darkening that a little bit. And I'm adding some blue with the Carbothello 440 Sky Blue. And I'm outlining the edge of the box with Viridian Matte Carbothello 590, getting a little bit darker. At the very top of the marble, I'm using 390 Carbothello Indigo Blue to add another layer of color to darken it. A little bit of white to lighten things up. I want to get my values right. And I'm adding the Carbothello 440 to the top area of these highlights that are further down on the marble. I'm using the Conte 21 to add a little blue stripe over there, and now I'm switching to the Conte 43 and adding more color to the marble. It's a blend of colors. That's why I love using the pastel pencils. It's easy to blend the colors. So I'm going to make it a little bluer with the Conte 21 and blend it well with my blender. Using a bit more of the Pitt 159 to darken the marble. Adding more blue with a blue NuPastel, but you could use the 151 Pitt blue pencil to do that and then blend it in. Here I'm using NuPastel 298 Bottle Green. It needs to be a little bit darker. And I'm going to lighten the area just beneath the highlights with the Derwent P370. And I've got enough pastel down, I can probably finger blend it, but this will lighten that area and give dimension and depth to the marble. I'm adding some bright white highlights on the outside edge with my Carbothello 100 pencil. Putting a little bit of the white on top of the blue that we put previously and blending it with my finger to lighten that a little bit more. And you can see how it causes it to have that three-dimensional look. I'm using my Rembrandt 100.5 white to add a final light up at the very brightest part of the highlight at the top of the marble. Now I'm going to start adding the stripes. For the first stripe, I'm going to color the edge with 440 Sky Blue, and moving inward, I'm using Derwent 330 Cerulean Blue. I love this color. It's a beautiful, bright blue, and I'm adding it to the marble. In this first stripe, it's going to go all the way to the edge, and we're going to avoid a little highlight that comes across this upper edge of the marble, so we're going to color around it. And I'm blending it with my blender. And I'm using my Conte 10, which is ultramarine, to enrich the color in that area, and using the cerulean to add a darker edge on the outside. This is Pitt 151 Prussian Blue to add the dark blue color in the center of the stripe. I'm filling in the top of this stripe with the 330 Cerulean Blue Derwent pencil and adding a little bit of 440 over the top. And that's the 151, just adding a little bit darker color. There's a highlight that runs through here, so I'm being careful to preserve that while I get the stripes also put in. Now I'm using my 330 Derwent to add the outside edge of this stripe. And I'm outlining the edge with the 151 Prussian Blue Pitt Pastel. At the top edge, I'm using Juniper Green, which is number 165 Pit, and Derwent 330, the pale spectrum blue on the top right side. I want to darken that outside edge with the 165 Pit, and I'm going to make it a little darker with my 750 black Carbithella pencil. And then there is a very thin line of white that separates the black, goes on the outside of the black and separates this marble from the one in front of it, or actually behind it, our big shooter marble that we painted earlier. And now I am using a Conte 21 blue-green to add blue at the top. And I'm also going to color the next stripe with this Conte pencil. So I'm alternating stripes. So I skipped one stripe, and now I'm putting in the blue with the Conte 21. And I skipped another stripe. Actually, it looks like two shapes, and added some more. And then we're going to add other colors to fill this in. Now I'm adding a little Prussian green, which is Conte 43, over the blue, which helps fill in the tooth, and then I'm going to blend these with our little blender. I added a little stripe of white Carbithella 100, and now I am filling in this next stripe with 151 Pit Prussian blue, and I'm also putting a little bit at the top, and this is going to be just above where the highlight I've been telling you about is going to be. That's the Conte Prussian green number 43. This is a little air bubble in the marble, so I'm going to fill that in with, outline it with white Carbithella 100, and fill it in with Prussian blue 151 Pit. I'm filling in this next area on our marble next to the white stripe, and in between it and the 151 Prussian blue with cerulean blue number 330. And blend those with the tip of the blender. Keep your color clean when you're blending, so switch sides or wipe your little blender on a paper towel, which works really well for taking off excess pastel. Darkening this a little bit with the 151 Pit Prussian blue. I'm adding a little green into that stripe with Pit Pastel 165 Juniper Green. And adding some highlights, lightening stripes with the Derwent P370. Shading this stripe with a little more green, that's Juniper Green 165. And on the outside edge, I'm using some cerulean. And we're adding that next stripe with the cerulean Derwent 330. I'm going to make it a little darker with Pitt 151 Prussian blue. This is Carbothello 440. I'm lightening the blue with that, blending the colors together. Now this is my 750 black. We can darken colors, change the value by using it. So I've decided it needs a little more value change. So I'm adding black to the stripes that I've previously put down. I'm using my Carbothello 440 Sky Blue to add the next stripe. I'm going to shade this stripe that I added with 151 Prussian Blue, the Pitt pastel pencil. Darken the outside edge and blend it with my finger. Just kind of, there's enough pastel down where I can finger blend that, soften it. Now over that, I'm going to add some dark green with the 165 Pitt pastel. So it makes a dark blue-green. And a little bit of the Carbothello mixed in with that as well. At the very top, you can see where I've left a little zigzag area open. This is where the highlight I've been talking to you about is. So I'm using my white Carbothello pencil to add in that heavier, bright light that we see there. I'm pushing fairly hard. And over it, I'm putting a little cerulean, at the top rather, I'm putting a little cerulean 330 blue and lightening areas just above the highlight with my white pencil. Using a little piece of Rembrandt 100 soft pastel to add to that highlight area and make it a little brighter, because that's the softest pastel we have and it adds the most punch. Now I'm going to finish this stripe as we move towards the right side of the marble with Prussian Green 43, and I'm glazing a little Carbothello 100 over it to lighten it just a bit. By glazing, I mean just adding a light application of the white. And there is a black area just below that I'm drawing in with my 750 black pastel pencil, and I'm filling that in with a little piece of Rembrandt 700.5 black soft pastel. On the left side of our marble, I'm using Carbothello 545 Emerald Green Light to brighten up that area and increase the light, the highlight color. We used it on the first marble, and it's just a beautiful color. And I'll finger blend that to blend it in. I'm going to use a little bit on this side, on the last stripe that we finished, where we applied the white, and I'm going to put a little more there. Now we're going to fill in the last stripe with Pitt Pastel 174 Chrome Green. I'm outlining this stripe with the Carbothello 570 Leaf Green Middle. And putting a little bit of 151 Prussian blue in the center. I decided to add a little touch of brown in this last little spot. And I'm doing that with Carbothello 640 or a similar color, just kind of a red-brown. It's not on your color list, but I thought it added a little bit to the picture. And putting a little black on the outside edge with 750 Carbothello pencil. Now the last little area on the marble I'm going to fill in with 370 Derwent Pale Spectrum Blue. We're going to brighten it with a touch of 440 Sky Blue and color underneath it with 750 Black. Join me for part 3 of our reflected glass marbles, where we start working on the red marble.